I want to go back for just a minute and remind you of what we did in the previous set of notes for Learning Target 210. And what we had done was we said, if I know the slope, I already know I can start my equation y equals 2/3 x. And then I can go find my y-intercept by doing the following. If I know that y equals mx plus b, I already know my slope is 2/3, and inside my ordered pair, I know that the x in that ordered pair is 15, so I can substitute that for x. The y is 9, so I can substitute that for y. And then, I'm not going to finish this right now, I could solve this equation to find b, which is my y-intercept, and then add that to my final equation here. The difference between that and today's notes is they don't give me the slope first. Now, slope is m, and it's rise over run. So I'm going to start with a fraction bar. I know that inside the ordered pair, x comes before y. I would highly encourage you to write one of your points above the other point. This helps you to keep your x's lined up and your y's lined up so you don't mix and match them. I know rise over run, and I know that y's rise, and inside the ordered pair, x comes before y. That means my 1 and my -2, and notice that I'm making that negative look like a negative and not a minus, go in the numerator. My x's run across, so my -18 and my -9 are in the denominator. Now, let's stop back and look at some different numbers. If I had a y that rose from 16 to 20, it rose 4. Well, I can get the 4 from the 16 and 20 using subtraction. So that's why the slope formula always has subtraction between the y's and between the x's. But it's also why I was very careful to write my negative up here as a negative so I wouldn't mistake it for the minus that I need to put as part of the slope formula. At this point, minus and negative is really cumbersome and difficult to work with, so I'm going to change that to plus a positive, and this minus a negative also to plus a positive. So my slope is +3 over -9, which I can reduce, if I need to, using my calculator to -1/3. Now I know my slope. As soon as I know my slope, I'm going to go start writing my answer. Y equals -1/3 x. At this point, I'm going to go and do the work that I did the other day on the first part of 210. I'm going to take one of my points, and it doesn't matter which point. If I think -9, -2 looks easier to use than -18, 1, I'll use it. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to go back to my y equals mx plus b. I know my slope is -1/3, so I'm going to substitute that for m. My x in that ordered pair is -9, and then from the same ordered pair, my y is -2. And I'm going to bring down my plus b because I'm trying to solve for that y-intercept. Doing a little bit of arithmetic using my calculator if I need to, I get -2 equals +3 plus b. Then when I subtract 3 from both sides of the equation to solve for b, I get my y-intercept is -5. So my final equation, y equals -1/3 x minus 5. I can check that equation by taking my other point, my -18 and 1, substituting -18 in place of my x, and calculating. So -1/3 times -18 is +6, minus 5 is +1. Yes, my y is +1, so my equation is correct. My second one, slope is rise over run, so I'm going to put my fraction bar. I'm going to write one of my points, my 12, -6, doesn't matter which point goes on top. Y's rise, so my -6 and my 9 go in the numerator. X's run across, so my 12 and 0 go in the denominator. And since I'm finding the change in y and the change in x, I put subtraction in. Simplifying this gives me -15 over +12, and then reducing that fraction but leaving it as an improper fraction, it becomes -5/4. So y equals -5/4 x. Think about what we're doing when we find the y-intercept. We're finding where the line crosses the y-axis. Any point on the y-axis has an x value of 0. So since 0, 9 is a point on the y-axis, and the y value is 9, it means my y-intercept in this case is positive 9, and I didn't actually have to go and calculate it. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. -3, -5, because it doesn't matter which point's on top. Slope is rise over run, so get my fraction bar. Y is rise, so my -5 and my +5 in the numerator. X is run across, so my -3 and my +2 in the denominator. I'm finding the change in value, so I want to subtract. So I end up with -10 over -5, and if I divide -10 by -5, I get +2. Now, if you'd chosen to put your points in the other order, you would have had +10 over +5 here, but it still would have reduced to +2, so it doesn't matter which is the first point. Now I just wrote m equals and I meant y equals, so I know it's going to start with y equals 2x. I need to go find my y-intercept. I know that y equals mx plus b. I just found my slope was 2, so I'm going to substitute that for m. And then I can choose either one of these two ordered pairs to use for my x and y. I think +2, +5 looks easier. They have to be from the same point. So I'm going to substitute 2 for my x and 5 for my y, and then solve this. 5 equals 4 plus b. Then when I subtract 4 from both sides, 1 equals b. So my y-intercept is +1. So my final equation, y equals 2x plus 1. Now, I might be tricked in this. First of all, I know I have to find my slope. So it's rise over run, and I'm going to put my -8 and my -30 on top. So y is rise, -30 minus 0. X is run across, -8 minus 7. I end up with -30 over -15 for a slope, again, of +2. Y equals 2x. I might be tempted to look at this and say, hey, 7 then is going to be my y-intercept. But at this point is on the y-axis. X is 0, y is 9. This is actually my x-intercept, where x is 7 and y is 0. So I do actually need to go calculate this. I'm going to use the 7 and the 0 for my x and y because I think they look a lot easier than the -8 and -30. So I go back to my y equals mx plus b. My slope is 2. I already found that. The ordered pair I chose to use, my x was 7 and my y was 0. Bring down my plus b because I need to solve for that. So 0 equals 14 plus b. And then when I subtract 14 from both sides of the equation, I get that my y-intercept equals -14. As soon as I know that, I'm going to put that -14 into my equation. I can check this using the point I did not just use to calculate b. So this says if I take 2 and substitute my -8 for my x, 2 times -8 is -16, minus 14 is -30. Yes, the y is -30, so I just checked my equation.